People make mistakes all the time, and it's almost impossible to avoid them. But you might think that very careful planning goes into big building projects. But this is not always the case. In this video, we'll look at how mistakes costing billions of dollars were made, how building sites were held up for decades, and how a New York skyscraper almost fell over and caused a disaster. Number 1. Jeddah Tower. The Jeddah Tower, which used to be called the Kingdom Tower, is in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. The Jeddah Tower was going to be the first building in the world to reach a height of 1 kilometer. It would be the same height as putting 2.5 Empire State Buildings on top of each other. The skyscraper is part of Saudi Arabia's plan to make tourism a bigger part of the country's income. Like Dubai did with the famous Burj Khalifa, the Jeddah Tower was supposed to be finished by 2018. Work on it started in 2013. But the 2017 Saudi Arabian purge caused a lot of construction problems, and the building stopped being built when only a third of the tower was finished. The Saudi Arabian government locked up major backers in the project, like Prince Al-Walid bin Talal. A few months later, when the investors were let go, work was still on hold, and there was no set date for when it would be done. At the time they stopped, the tower was already 252 meters tall. COVID-19 has put off plans to start building again in 2020 even more, because it would not be safe for workers to work in these conditions. Since then, the building site hasn't moved forward at all. If the project is stopped in the middle of its building, at least $1 billion will be lost. Number 2. Stuttgart 21. Germany's Stuttgart 21 is a huge train project, as a whole train station has to be turned 90 degrees. The project is one of the most interesting building sites in the country. When the station was a terminal, trains had to leave in the opposite direction of how they came in. This takes a lot of time, so the government chose to turn the train station into a bus station, so the station can be a part of a high-speed train line that runs from Paris to Stuttgart, Munich, Vienna and Bratislava, and is 1,500 kilometers long. When building started in 2010, the Stuttgart 21 was expected to cost no more than $5.4 billion and be finished in 2019, but they did not even come close to achieving either of these two goals. There have been many delays in finishing the job for different reasons. As of now, the train station is scheduled to open at the end of 2025. This is more than 6 years later than what was first planned. In addition to the protests of many Germans and environmentalists, problems with the tunnel building also slowed down Stuttgart 21 to connect Stuttgart's new station to the current rail network. Nearly 60 kilometers of tunnels need to be built. Unfortunately, the work is very hard because of a special kind of soil that gets bigger when it gets wet. This could mean that the pipes need to be fixed or replaced over and over again. In 2017, there was another unexpected trouble that wasn't too bad. Because of the building project, thousands of lizards that were strictly protected had to be moved from Iran to Stuttgart. The people in charge of the project think this problem will cost $18 million. In some tough situations, the company in charge of the lizards has charged up to $10,000 per lizard. In addition to being late, Stuttgart 21 will cost at least twice as much as was first planned. Independent estimates say that by the time the job is done, the cost could reach nearly $12 billion. Number 3. Citigroup Center. The Citigroup Center is a tall building with offices in New York's Midtown Manhattan. The 280-meter tall building has a unique trait. It is held up by 4 towers that are each 34 meters long. In 1978, a very big problem was found. Before that, engineers figured out how stable a building was by measuring the winds that came from the side of the building, but they didn't take into account the winds that hit the corners from the sides. The problem was found when civil engineer William LeMessurier was talking to Princeton student Diane Hartley, who is also a civil engineer. She said that the building was not safe and that it could topple over at any time if there was a strong wind. Because of this, the experts have started doing tests to make sure the structure is safe. They quickly found out that Diane Hartley, a college student, was right. LeMessurier said that a wind that could bring down the building happens on average once every 55 years. But if the power went out and the mass tamper couldn't work, a wind that blows on average once every 16 years would be strong enough. If the building fell, it would kill everyone inside. Unlike a teardown, the building wouldn't fall in on itself. Instead, it would fall over. This could start a domino effect that could damage or even bring down other New York buildings. A nightmare situation that had to be stopped at all costs. And it got even worse. Hurricane Ella was headed right for the city. Engineers had to act quickly because they didn't want to cause a fear among the public. The mayor of New York City was one of the few people who knew about the problem, and no public comment was made. For 3 months, the experts worked at night to figure out what was wrong. In the end, to make the Citigroup Center more stable, they welded 2-inch steel plates over the bolted joints in the building. Lucky for them, Hurricane Ella did not hit the area, and the repairs, which cost a lot of money, were finished in October 1978. After Lemaitre lightly talked about it at a party 17 years later, the whole story was told in an article in the New Yorker. Number 4. Berlin-Brandenburg Airport. The Berlin-Brandenburg Airport is a project in Germany to build an international airport. When building started in 2006, the project was supposed to cost about $2.4 billion and be finished in 2011. But for the next few years, there were delays because of embarrassing mistakes and wrongdoing. So, the dates for building could not be met in any way. When a planning company involved in the project went bankrupt in 2010, about a year before the planned opening date, this caused the first delay. Further delays happened due to non-compliant fire protection standards. But that's not all. The airport also didn't pass the acceptance test that was needed for it to work as an airport. Also, 67 kilometers of cooling lines that didn't have thermal insulation were put in. To fix this mistake, many walls had to be torn down and the pipes had to be rebuilt. Costs have more than tripled so far, reaching a total of $8.3 billion. The Berlin-Brandenburg Airport finally opened in 2020, 14 years after work began and 9 years after the original opening date. But the airport's problems are not over yet. Even though the airport is now open, it is unlikely that it will be able to pay for itself during or after the pandemic. To keep from going bankrupt, more money will be needed, which could cost an extra $2 billion. Number 5. 20 Fenchurch Street. The 20 Fenchurch Street building is a business skyscraper in London. It gets its name from the street number it is on. A Hong Kong company called Lee Kum Kai bought the building for about $1.8 billion, which is a record price for a single building in the UK. After it was finished in 2014, the building was called a walkie-talkie because of its shape, and it was also called the weirdest new building in Great Britain. But that wasn't the real problem with the building. In the planning process for 20 Fenchurch Street, a mistake was made that wasn't too expensive but was still rare. The walkie-talkie is like many modern buildings in that it has a big glass front that reflects the sun. But since most high-rise buildings have straight walls, this made things difficult. During the day, the sun shines on the south side of the house, which is a bit concave, so it gets a lot of light. So, the walkie-talkie focuses the sun on the street and the houses on the other side of the street. This meant that in the summer, the sun's rays were mirrored 6 times stronger than usual. Because of this, there was a lot of heat, which melted even stopped cars and made the sidewalks crack. In a film from Sky News, a reporter fried an egg on the other side of the street using only the sun's reflection. Jim Watterson works for City AM as a reporter. He's just making lunch right now. I even can't pick it up. It is indeed that hot on the streets of London. He just cooked an egg. It is very hot. It's really hot. Raphael Vignoli, who designed the building, also created the Vdara Hotel in Las Vegas, which had the same problem with light reflecting off of the windows. In an interview, he said that this problem shouldn't happen if there are straight louver windows on the south side, but they were taken out at some point when the plans were being made. Vignoli also said that he didn't know it would get that hot and that it wasn't like this when he first came to London many years ago. In the end, the problem was solved by installing a screen, which cost around $14 million.